Welcome to another episode of Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your creepy host, Dom, and today we will be looking at one of my favorite horror anthologies for kids. Let's gather around the campfire as we explore Are You Afraid of the Dark? Are You Afraid of the Dark was created by producer DJ McHale, an American television producer, and filmed in Montreal by Cinar. The show is a co-production between Montreal-based Cinar Films and the U.S. Nickelodeon Network. It had its debut on Nickelodeon in the United States in August 1992. The original series and its first revival revolved around a group of teenagers who refer to themselves as the Midnight Society. Every episode, at a secret location in the woods at night, one member would tell a scary story to the group. The actual story, rather than the telling, was displayed to the television viewer. The story was shown between the group's arrival at the site and their departure. Each storyteller would begin their story by saying, "Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, I call the story," and then they would say the name of the story. At this point, they would toss a handful of midnight dust, which was actually coffee mate, from a leather pouch into a campfire to heighten the flames to produce an eerie white smoke. The line, "Submitted for the approval of," was created by McHale as a nod to The Twilight Zone, in which Rod Serling would, after introducing the episode, say, "Submit it for your approval." The storyteller would continue by announcing its title. The themes of the stories usually revolve around a variety of paranormal phenomena, such as demons, ghosts, magic, haunted houses, magical curses, aliens, witches, vampires, werewolves, and the like coming into contact with average youth. Usually the episodes were either filmed in the woods, in abandoned houses, or in public places like schools or libraries. Sources of these tales vary in different ways. Many were adaptations of public domain fairy tales and short stories or urban legends. Sometimes the stories were inspired by a certain event in the life of the storyteller. In the episode The Tale of the Crimson Clown, for instance, Tucker blackmailed his brother Gary with the poem he had found, which Gary had written for Samantha. Gary then told a story in which a naughty younger brother was punished cruelly for his evil deeds. At the end of the episode, Tucker gave the poem back to his brother. The majority of the horror stories on Are You Afraid of the Dark had happy endings, or at least endings in which their characters were in a decent place. But some of them, albeit a very small number of them, had either bad endings or twist endings like The Tale of the Lonely Ghost, The Tale of the Dark Music, The Tale of the Chameleons, The Tale of Vampire Town, and The Tale of the Pinball Wizard. At the end of most episodes, one character, usually Gary in the first run and Tucker in the second run of the show, would throw a red bucket of water onto the fire, stating, "I declare this meeting of the Midnight Society closed." And the group would leave the campsite, thus ending the storytelling. Who were the members of the Midnight Society? Let's go over the original and the first revival society members. Starting with the original run, Gary, a bookish-looking boy and the founder of this generation of the Midnight Society. Gary has a distinct fascination with magic, especially where the magician Houdini is concerned. His stories tend to revolve around cursed or enchanted objects with supernatural properties. Betty Ann, a vibrant girl who has an open and eager passion for the bizarre and twisted. Her stories often include themes where an alien or supernatural force is either trying to break into the world of the characters or else trying to drag them into their own unnatural realms. Her stories tend to have twists reminiscent of Twilight Zone episodes, hinting that the protagonists of her stories have not yet escaped danger by the end. Kiki, a spunky, tomboyish girl who often makes fun of others. Many of her stories involve plots where the danger of carelessness, or deceitfulness, as well as the danger of the past, repeats itself. Also notable is that a large number of characters in her stories are also of African descent, likely due to Kiki herself being African Canadian, though the trend dies off later in the series. Frank, a punkish teenager with an in-your-face attitude. Though his stories do not often have a running theme, they do often have the recurring character Dr. Vink. He appears as a villain, or at least the creator of the story's antagonist. In Season 5, he and his family move away, and he is replaced in the group by Stig. Tucker, Gary's younger brother and the youngest member of the Midnight Society. Due to his age, he is often portrayed as youthfully obnoxious. His stories tend to involve family relationships that are at first sour but grow in strength in the face of adversity, possibly reflecting his relationship with his brother Gary. There is also a running theme of the characters accidentally unleashing evil upon their world. After Gary left, he took over his place as the president of the Midnight Society. Once Tucker is in charge, he is less of a brat and more of a serious leader like his older brother. He is the only character to appear in both generations of the Midnight Society. Sam, a shy girl with an obvious mutual crush on Gary, which becomes one of the highlighted arcs of both of their developments in the series. Reflecting this affection for Gary, Sam's stories tend to have more of a strong theme of love, and its endurance even beyond death. Kristen, a girl who, though squeamish about much else, has a fondness for ghost stories and fairy tales. She has a growing crush on David, and their affection for each other is a developing arc in the first few seasons. She loves to dress up for her stories or bring something for effect, sometimes to scare the others with, and her stories almost always deal with ghosts from the past who have unfinished business that they cannot complete without the aid of the living. In Season 3, she left the Midnight Society due to her and her family moving. She was replaced in the group by Sam. David, a quiet boy with a crush on Kristen. David's stories tend to be less about malignant outside forces and more to do with the evil of past events left unresolved, or the darkness inside normal people, and the consequences of not dealing with their actions. In Season 3, he and his family moved away, and he was replaced in the group by Tucker. Stig. His nickname may come from the term stigma, as he is marked as an outsider for his notable lack of hygiene. Stig is the last member to be initiated into this generation of the Midnight Society. Due to the aversion people seem to have against him for his looks, both of his stories seem to revolve around outsiders judged for their appearances and or tastes. Eric. Eric is portrayed as a diminutive teenager with visible Irish ancestry that influences his first story. As he only had 2 stories in the first season before his character was cut, there is no visible theme in his storytelling, but they seem to be about incredibly powerful evil forces, ones never proven innocent or misunderstood like some others. In his short run on the show, Eric was shown to be rather snide and negative, spending most of the time making sarcastic remarks and antagonizing the other members, especially Frank. He is the only character to leave the show without an explanation for his departure. Once the show was revived, we got a whole new group of Midnight Society members. So this is for the first revival. Several years after the last meeting of the Midnight Society, Tucker returns to restart the meetings, inviting his own circle of friends to reform the Midnight Society. Quinn. Quinn is usually getting in trouble at school and home, but he is a smart kid that likes to make fun of Andy, teamed up with Vange. Quinn's stories have little in common, though usually involve the protagonist's actions unleashing or bringing them face to face with the villain. Vange. Vange, short for Evangeline, is the youngest of the new Midnight Society. She is a tomboy and does not have a problem with speaking her mind. Teamed up with Quinn, she makes fun of Andy a lot. Vange's stories have little in common, though most seem to be about how wanting something too badly can cause the main character to play into the villain's hands. Andy. Andy is very sweet and kind. He is always being made fun of by Quinn and Vange for having more muscle than brains. He lives on a farm with his family. He often works there before and after school. Andy is the closest to Meg. Andy's stories have little in common but are often about how characters' dark sides can unleash evil. Usually, the inspiration for his stories are based on his own real-life personal experiences. Megan. Megan is a rich kid who is not very comfortable in the woods. Tucker, not being the stickler his brother was, lets Megan refurnish the campfire with some comfortable old couches. She seems to have a soft spot for Andy. Megan's stories have little in common, though most seem to be somehow involved with romance. Sometimes she brings up a prop or starts a brief game relating to her story. Ross Hull was the only actor kept from the Midnight Society from the original pilot, although he originally played Frank. He was recast as Gary. Ryan Gosling had impressed DJ McHale during an early audition and was offered one of the roles of the Midnight Society, but he was committed to shooting the Mickey Mouse Club show and declined. Once the show ended, he moved back to Canada and was cast as a guest starring role in the episode The Tale of Station 109.1. During the original run, the most frequent storyteller was Betty Ann, who told 12 stories. Gary and Kiki, the only other members present through the whole of the original series run, each told 10, including Gary sharing the two-part The Tale of Cutter's Treasure with Frank. Tucker told 7, Frank, counting The Tale of Cutter's Treasure, and Sam each told 6. David and Kristen each told 5. Eric and Stig each only told 2. In the new Midnight Society founded by Tucker, he told 6, Megan told 5, and Vange, Andy, and Quinn each told 4. Tucker beat Betty Ann with 13 stories. Now let's move on to some of the recurring characters. Outside of the Midnight Society, there are 2 recurring characters in the stories told by Gary and Frank. The first of the recurring characters is Sardo, played by Richard Dumont. Sardo is the owner of Sardo's Magic Mansion, a magic shop. He would often attempt to sell a character a prized item, succeeding almost every single time. He often had items in his shop that contained real properties of magic, yet he did not know until it was revealed in the story. One of the most memorable recurring jokes in the series occurred when someone would address him as Mr. Sardo. He would then get irritated and exclaim, "That's Sardo, no Mr. Accent on the dough." Another recurring gag is Sardo attempting to sell a series of cheap novelty items before revealing the magical artifact, culminating with fake vomit, asking the protagonists, "Have you seen our vomit?" Additionally, when selling someone an item, he would often ask a rather high price. The main character would mention how much money they had, and Sardo would grab the money saying, "But I'm losing on the deal." Although he rarely got what he wanted, he would often end up helping the characters, often unintentionally. He appeared in Gary's stories, although in later seasons he appeared in 2 of Tucker's and 1 of David's in the episode The Tale of the Dark Dragon. Sardo's character was revived in the 2nd season of the second revival, Curse of the Shadows. Richard Dumont appears in the finale as Sardo. The second recurring character who appeared in Frank's stories was Dr. Vink, played by Aaron Teger. He was a physically imposing man who would often appear as a mad scientist, sorcerer, and the like. When he enters, he introduces himself by saying, "Vink's the name, Dr. Vink." He would also get his name mispronounced, usually something like Dr. Fink. When this happened, he would respond, "Vink," with a v, when the protagonist would call him a nutbag behind his back, assuming he could not hear him, only to have him reply later, "And I am not a nutbag." Unlike Sardo, whose character was set in a magic shop, Dr. Vink had multiple unique endeavors, as he called them, for his stories. These range from living deep in the woods, conducting strange nature experiments, being a retired filmmaker, owning his own restaurant as head chef, and lastly as a barbershop. His activities were usually villainous, designed to put the character in peril and allow him the last laugh. However, in his last appearance, The Tale of Cutter's Treasure, which was told by both Frank and Gary, he allied himself with Sardo and the main characters without his usual maliciousness. Aaron Tager also played the carnival worker who stands in front of the funhouse and invites people to go inside in the episode The Tale of the Laughing in the Dark. The character of Zeebo the Clown, also played by Tager, who appeared in The Tale of the Laughing in the Dark, is referenced in several other stories. For example, in the episode The Tale of the Whispering Walls, 2 children mention seeing him at a fun park. In the episode The Tale of the Mystical Mirror, the girl says she will look like Zeebo if she wears too much lipstick. And in the episode The Tale of the Crimson Clown, in the boys' room, a video game called Zeebo's Big House can be seen on the desk with a picture of Zeebo on it and the title character. The video game was also mentioned in the episode The Tale of Train Magic. Finally, in the episode The Tale of the Night Shift, the teenage janitor is called Zeebo by his supervisor a few times at the beginning of the episode. There are quite a few episodes we can discuss, but I will get into 3 of my favorites. The first is The Tale of the Dead Man's Float. This is probably my favorite episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Stig tells this story. The story starts off in the 50s. A young Jay Burchell is swimming as his older brother is chatting up some chick. Jay starts to get pulled under the water by some unseen force, and it's too late. He drowns. We jump ahead to 1994. Zeke is a huge nerd. His miscalculations with chemicals in his volcano, and it starts to smoke and slime spills everywhere. The teacher goes to get the janitor. Greta and Clarice, who are both on the school swimming team, have a little crush on him. Greta says that he's cute like a little puppy, although Clarice sort of does too. She also thinks he's a geek and annoying. She tells Greta, yeah, like a puppy you need to clean up after. But Zeke has a crush on Clarice. Greta and Clarice go over to him and ask him what went wrong with the volcano experiment. He says his mistakes were resulting in a really big exploding mess. Clarice coldly leaves him and takes off with Greta back to their suits. The teacher comes back and dismisses the class. Then the custodian comes in to clean the mess Zeke made. As the class leaves, Zeke waits for Clarice. He tells her that since she is on the swim team, that he has a surprise to show her. She asks him to just tell her. He says he can't just tell her, then it wouldn't be any fun. Feeling intrigued, she agrees to let him show her the surprise the next morning before school starts. Zeke and Clarice meet. He leads her to the boys' changing room. Clarice just wants to leave. Then Zeke shows a panel at the corner of the lockers on the opposite wall. He tells her that a week ago he calculated the entire mass of the school and found out that there was more rooms in the school than it appeared to be. Zeke pulls the wall of lockers away from the wall, and there's a door hidden behind where the lockers were, and the inscription on the door says, "To pool." They enter the pool house, and it is a mess. Clarice says that she never knew that it was there. Zeke tells her that he read up about it, and the pool was used shortly in the 50s, and then it was closed off for some reason. Clarice speaks to everyone at school. In a few weeks' time, the pool is as good as new and reopened. Later in science class, Clarice is upset because she got a C- on her exam. Zeke asks her what the problem is, and she tells him that if she doesn't get her science grades up, she'll be kicked off the swim team. He decides to help tutor her. In return, she can teach him how to swim. They meet later at the pool to relax, study, and swim. Zeke is afraid to get into the water, so she goes through it slowly with him. They float in the pool in an inflatable raft. Then she tells him slowly to first try putting his hand into the water. Zeke is too nervous to even do this. She asks him what it is that scares him so much about being in the water. He tells her that when he was a kid, his foot got tangled in some underwater plants, and he couldn't get loose. The harder he tried, the worse it got, and he almost drowned. His brother saw him and cut him loose. Clarice strips down to her swimsuit and then jumps into the pool to show him that the pool is safe and there is nothing in it that will harm him. Suddenly she panics and something starts pulling her under the water. She swims back up, gasping for air and coughing. Then on the other side of the raft, Greta pops up from the water yelling, "Boo!" She pulled Clarice under the water as a joke. Clarice madly snaps at her, telling her that her joke wasn't funny. As Greta swims and exits the pool, Greta says, "I thought you don't like puppies." And then Clarice tries to explain that Zeke's helping her with science. Greta doesn't believe her and says, "Yeah, right," and leaves. Clarice once again tells him that nothing is down there. As she says this, the presence of something at the bottom of the pool closes in on their raft. Then, as Zeke puts his hand into the water and a horrible, acidic smell fills the pool house, Zeke is pulled by the hand. He falls headfirst into the water. Clarice panics and screams his name over and over again. Zeke swims back up, and Clarice grabs him by the hand and helps him back into the raft. The acid smell is back as something begins shaking their raft and overturns them into the pool. Something is pulling the both of them down. A net on a pole appears and helps pull them out. It is the janitor, Charlie. Then, a little later in the locker room, they're both drying off and having warm drinks. Zeke asks Charlie what it is. With a look of guilt and upset on his face, he tells them both the history of the school pool. When the school's pool first opened, he was a lifeguard, and during his watch, his girlfriend Cindy's little brother Joe drowned. He says it was not an accident, and that he tried to save the boy, but the creature wouldn't let him. The school shut down the swimming pool. Clarice asks Charlie what it is. Charlie says that in order to build the school, they first had to remove an old cemetery and move all of the bodies. So he figures that they forgot one of the bodies and that the spirit is angry. Zeke has a plan to defeat the creature. The three of them head to the science room. Zeke explains that since it's invisible, so no one is ever going to believe them. But if they can see it, then maybe they can stop it. Since it's part acid, Zeke plans to douse it with methyl orange, because when methyl orange reacts to something acidic, it will turn it red. Zeke puts on gloves and safety goggles and begins to pour some methyl orange into the pool. The red ozone slowly begins to take shape. Suddenly emerging from the water is a hideous, terrifying red zombie corpse. The corpse is a slowly decomposing skeleton. Clarice screams, and Charlie, seeing it for the first time after all these years, begins to go into shock. The corpse comes towards them, so Zeke tries to whack it with the handle of the net, but it just splashes right through it like it's nothing. Zeke runs off to the changing room, where Clarice is treating Charlie, who is now lying down in shock. Zeke explains that since the corpse is now visible, he can't hide anymore, and now it roams freely. Also, since it is made of water, it can travel through pipes and drains. Then it instantly appears in the changing room. It comes right through the drain on the floor, and they run off screaming. Zeke doesn't know how to stop it, but Clarice has an idea. Since the corpse is water-based, she says she'll douse it in manganite. This will cause the water-based creature to explode. Zeke applauds her for remembering his experimental volcano, saying that she is brilliant. Clarice is about to open the container when Zeke slaps it away and it sinks to the bottom of the pool. Zeke did this because her hands are wet, so if she opens it, the chemical would burn her skin. Clarice decides to swim in after it. She swims to the bottom of the pool to retrieve it. Then the corpse slimes back into the pool and begins to move towards her. Zeke screams for her to get out. She sees it moving in on her and she is frozen in fear and shock and cannot move. Zeke jumps in to save her. When he does, she snaps out of it. The corpse is now after him, so he begins to swim away, but not very quickly, since he isn't as an experienced swimmer. Clarice makes it out of the pool with the chemical. Then she puts on the safety gloves. Zeke is about to get out, but seeing the corpse, he almost goes into shock and cannot move. Charlie returns to pull Zeke out of the pool just as Clarice calls out to the corpse and douses it with the manganite. The corpse loudly and violently screams and moans as it bubbles, oozes, sizzles, smokes, steams, and evaporates away into nothing. Zeke applauds her for defeating it. Then they smile in their victory as Charlie looks on in relief, because finally, after all these years, the nightmare is finally over. He then gratefully thanks them. I love this episode because the creators could have easily kept the creature hidden or scaled back the design, but they went full bloody red corpse. The design fits perfectly within the world and is enough to really scare kids and teens. Hell, I'm an adult and I still think it's scary. Imagine swimming and seeing that thing slowly rise out of the water. Oh no, I'm not going back in there. I also like the ambiguousness of the creature. The simple explanation of a restless soul works so well. Moving along to our next episode, The Tale of the Dark Music. Eric tells this story. Andy Carr, a young teenager, has a very unfun life. His parents have recently gotten divorced, and he lives with his mother and little bratty sister, Christina. His mother isn't working a very high-paying job, and to help out, he got a paper route and a spare time to be able to buy lunch from school. Things were tough. Then one day, things got much better when his mom inherited an old big house from a rich uncle she didn't know too well. The same day his family moved into their new house is the same day Andy starts his paper route by bike. By accident, from not paying attention, Andy nearly runs into a long-haired punk teen named Coda, who happens to be the neighborhood bully. Coda lets Andy fall down to the ground, pins him by stepping on his chest, and threatens him not to mess with him. Coda also explains he, along with the rest of the neighborhood, are happy that Andy's great-uncle passed. Apparently, his great-uncle was said to be a nutbag and a very creepy hermit. Andy claims he didn't know him, but Coda still gives him a hard time. His mother couldn't even remember what the great-uncle Niles was like. She apparently had not seen him since she was a very little girl. Having difficulty fixing or adjusting curtain blinds, Andy's mom needs a ladder and asks Andy to find one in the basement. Apparently, a lot of stuff was still left behind in the house, and Andy is kind of nervous to go down to the basement, and his little sister Christina taunts him, asking if he is afraid of the dark. Andy goes down into the basement. He finds a pull cord light switch which turns on a very old-fashioned light bulb. All sorts of junk and clutter fill the basement. A strange crude wooden cellar door, kept sealed shut by a twist door knob, sits in the wall. Andy finds an old antique vintage wooden radio and, out of curiosity, plugs it into the outlet. Nothing happens. He calls for someone to turn on the wall switch. His mother flips the switch and the radio begins to play. The nearby wooden cellar's twist door knob begins to slightly shake and turn as the music is playing, but it stops as the music is turned off. When the music was turned back on, the door begins to open again. Andy, now noticing the shaking and rattling of the doorknob, turns and sees the door open wide with a pair of gleaming red eyes coming forward and a demonic voice saying, "Hello, Andy. Come in." Andy, terrified, screams and pounces back in fear. He bumps into the radio, causing the radio to fall and smash apart on the floor. The cellar door instantly closes, and whatever was inside vanishes. Andy goes to get his mom and show her the cellar door. When she opens the door, there's nothing behind it but a brick wall. She claims it's nothing but a root cellar, and that she get some more sleep. The next day, Coda scrubs his porch, while his strict and abusive father intimidates him, working hard for his allowance. Andy is delivering a newspaper and accidentally throws one into Coda's porch, but knocks over the bucket of soapy water, spilling it all over Coda. Coda, thinking he did it on purpose, chases Andy all the way home. Andy sneaks into the basement from the backyard cellar and gets away from Coda. Andy realizes he is in the basement again. Trying not to freak out, he looks around to see if there is anything out of the ordinary. Then suddenly he hears a boo! Christina is hiding down there waiting to scare him. He warns her not to come into the basement anymore, and she says, "Right, the boogeyman will get me." That evening, Andy asks his mom for more information about Great Uncle Niles. Apparently he was a strange man who never left the house, but somehow got filthy rich, and all the neighbors thought he was crazy. He had lived a long life and died of natural causes, found in the basement near the cellar. Christina stubbornly refuses to go downstairs to put the clothes in the dryer. Their mother tells a reluctant Andy to go down instead. While down there, he listens to his own stereo, playing while loading the clothes in the dryer. The doorknob on the cellar door begins to shake and rattle open again. This time, a very tall, life-size, blonde, curly-haired, creepy doll begins to approach Andy. In a trance, Andy almost reaches the doll's hand. That is, until his mom turns off the basement's power. She had been calling him for some time from upstairs. The doll instantly goes right back into the cellar and the door seals shut. Andy doesn't remember anything. The next day, Andy does more laundry and plays his music. This time, the door opens to a friendly circus barker greeting him. The circus barker shows him what appears to be a wonderful amusement park with great rides. Andy, in a trance again, begins to walk all the way to the cellar door. When he gets there, the friendly circus barker changes into a creepy skeleton and forms a tornado of some sort to try to pull him inside. He grabs his stereo and unplugs, and everything stops. Andy finally realizes that the monster behind the cellar door is controlled by music. Then, in a hurry to find his mom, Andy completely forgets about Coda, who ambushes Andy again and punches him in the face. He takes Andy's bike and throws it into the road, and the bike is run over by a truck. Andy cries and feels defeated. Remembering the basement monster, he smiles and puts his revenge plan to action. Andy brings a couple of loudspeakers down into the basement, wiring them all together so that they play music once the switch is flipped. Once he locks all the doors into the basement, Andy runs over to Coda's house to see him scrubbing the porch again. Andy throws a weighted newspaper at Coda and taunts him, saying, "Come clean my steps next. You make a good maid." Coda chases Andy all the way home into his backyard. The door to the basement is open and, thinking Andy went inside, Coda climbs inside. Andy comes out from hiding and shuts the basement door. Andy goes into the house and turns the basement's power switch on. The basement is full of ear-splitting music. Coda tries to open the locked door as a red, glowing aura comes through the cracks in the door that holds the monster. It opens faster than before. Coda turns and gives a terrified look as a loud, growling sound follows along with Coda screaming. Then Andy turns off the music, thinking Coda learned his lesson, and goes to get him out. He doesn't hear him or see him. Worried Coda might have been hiding, he warns him that he'll do it again if he hurts him. No one is in the basement. All Andy can find is a beautiful new bicycle. Andy turns on his stereo again, and the door opens slightly, this time giving off a slight blue glowing aura. This time the monster is very nice and humble, because he now trusts Andy. The monster informs him that his great uncle before him made a pact with the monster. Anything he ever wanted from this monster, as long as he would keep feeding him more humans. Christina yells that she is home, and that if he doesn't make her dinner, Mom would punish him. The creature diabolically laughs as Andy gives a sinister and diabolical smile. This story is one that I'd forgotten about for a while, until I saw a review of the episode. This is often considered one of the scariest episodes, and I can see why. An unsettling doll, a creepy carnival barker, and even just those glowing red eyes are scary. I love this idea of if you feed the beast, you're rewarded. Kind of like Little Shop of Horrors. The acting is cheesy, but I think they were able to pull off a dark and scary very effectively. I really enjoy this episode for being simple yet dark. Our last episode to overview is The Tale of the Dream Girl. Sam tells this story. The story is about two teenage siblings, a brother and sister, named Johnny and Erica and Jelly. They are very close and even work in the same bowling alley together, the Bolorama Lanes. Johnny is a repairman and Erica works as a waitress. One night, after closing, Johnny finds a beautiful silver ring in his locker. Puzzled about how it got there, he asks his sister if she put it there. Erica says she has no idea how it got there, but notices it's a girl's ring. Johnny, being curious, puts the ring on his finger and it becomes stuck. Later that evening, Johnny complains because the ring is still stuck. He tries everything, but it won't come off. Their mom, Mrs. Angeli, comes in and tells Erica it's time for bed because it's getting very late and it's school night. When Johnny says goodnight, she seems to ignore him and not answer. Confused, Johnny wants to know what's up with their mom. Erica says that their mom just has a lot on her mind right now. Instead of going to bed, Johnny decides to stay up a bit longer and watch more television. Suddenly, the reception and signal goes out, blinking and flashing black and white static. Then a teenage girl's voice calls out to Johnny. A gorgeous brunette teenage girl in a blue Letterman's jacket enters the living room. She tries to awaken Johnny as the sound of a train riding along the tracks can be heard. Just when she's about to kiss him on the cheek, the sound of a girl screaming in the background can be slightly heard. Then Johnny wakes up in frightened shock. Johnny, overhearing the manager, feels insulted, ignored, and invisible. Questions Erica about why the manager isn't mentioning or appreciating any work he has done. Erica, a little alarmed, asks him what he's doing there. Confused, he asks her why he can't be out in the open. She gives him an excuse saying that the manager will be mad if he gets grease on anything. He says at least the manager will know he's around and keeps the place running and will perhaps notice and appreciate him. Later, in the locker room, Johnny can't find any of his stuff in his locker. Then, suddenly, he can hear the teenage girl's voice calling to him. Johnny, Johnny, it's me, Donna. Johnny, confused and scared, asks who the voice belongs to. The voice says, it's Donna, Johnny. He looks down the hallway and suddenly, at the end of it, she appears, saying it's Donna, and calls out his name again. Shocked, Johnny goes over to find Erica, but he can't find her. Suddenly, Donna appears in the bowling alley and calls him by name. He goes over to see her, but when he gets there, she's gone, and people are just bowling. Johnny shakes it off and heads home. He tries to speak to his mom, but once again, she seems to ignore him and drops a letter addressed to him. He speaks about it with Erica. The letter is a love poem from Donna Maitland, and she invites him to meet her that night at the Bolorama snack bar. Although he has a weird feeling about it, he goes to know more about her. That night, he goes to the snack bar. Surprisingly, it's open. The waitress seems to be wearing 1960s clothing, and an old instrumental music is playing in the background. He asks what they're doing and that they're so late it's supposed to be closed. The waitress tells him that they're never closed because they're the night shift. A little time passes and Donna shows up, apologizing for being late and promises she'll never stand him up. And she can't because he's wearing her ring. He asks her who she is and how she knows him. She tells him he must know because he's wearing her ring. He tells her that he just found it, but she tells him to shh, and it's almost time to go, and she wants him to leave with her. Looking at the clock, the waitress tells him they better hurry. Suddenly, the clocks chime. Donna says it's too late right now, and she'll wait for him, and leaves. Confused, he wants to know what she means and bumps into the table. Suddenly, the snack bar is empty, and everyone is gone. Johnny runs home, scared and confused, to an upset and tense-looking Erica. He tells her she was there, and they met. Erica, holding out a newspaper, tells him before he says anything if this is the girl he saw. He says yes, it's her. Erica is upset to reveal that she is dead. Johnny is upset and shocked to hear her tell him that. Erica tells him she died in a car accident. The time of how long ago it happened isn't revealed, but it can be guessed it possibly happened from a couple of months to a couple of years ago. She was driving with her boyfriend, and the car got stuck on the train tracks. They made it out of the car, but Donna forgot her ring in the car, the ring her boyfriend had recently given her. Therefore, Donna ran back to the car to get it, and didn't make it in time, and the train came and smashed into the car and killed her. Johnny is scared now because he knows she is a ghost, and she wanted him to leave with her. Donna appears the next day to tell him to not run away from her, and she wants him to go with her. Johnny tells her to take the ring back because he doesn't want it. Donna, a bit frustrated, tells him that he should know by now that it's him that she wants, and he should understand that by now. Getting scared, he starts stammering and asks her to leave him alone. She comes closer and tells him it's time to go now. He yells no. Suddenly, Erica appears and Donna vanishes. Erica, seeing Johnny looking tense and freaked out, asks if he's okay. He asks her if she saw her, and Erica says who. Back at home, Johnny is tense, pacing back and forth. The phone rings and Erica answers it. She tells Johnny the call is for him and Donna. Johnny answers the phone rudely, telling her she knows it's all some kind of joke and he's not falling for it, and asks her to just leave him alone. Donna tells him she is sorry and she won't bother him anymore. Suddenly, the ring slips off his finger at long last. Johnny thinks maybe she just wants her ring back and decides to visit the cemetery and return it to her. Later that night, he visits the cemetery and carefully searches for her grave. Then suddenly, he trips and falls down. Erica comes over, shining a flashlight, and asks him if he's all right. He says he is and asks her if she found anything yet. Erica says no, she hasn't. Then suddenly, Johnny finds a plot on the ground and tells her to look at it. He wipes off the leaves to reveal Donna's name on it. Erica asks him how he knew it would be there. She mentions how he just so happened to get lost, wander away from her, and tripped right over it. A little puzzled, he asks her what she's talking about. She tells him exhausted that he knew exactly where she was buried, and asks him why do you think that is. He says that she doesn't know what she means. Erica tells him maybe you had been here before. He asks her why would he ever have been there. It's a cemetery. Erica explains when the car got stuck on the tracks, Donna and her boyfriend got out. But Donna remembers she forgot her ring inside the car and ran back to get it because it meant so much to her. Donna was too late, the train was coming, and she couldn't get out of the way in time. Hearing her scream in his head, Johnny now remembers everything now and screams, Donna. Johnny very unsettlingly says he turns back and ran to try and push Donna out of the way, but it was too late. The train was already there and crashes into them. Johnny now wipes off the rest of the leaves to reveal that his name is also on the gravestone below Donna's, and there is a message at the bottom that says, Together, eternally. He snaps at Erica about why she never told him. She tells him because he just didn't remember. He came back from the accident like nothing had happened, and she was the only person that could see him. And now that he knows, him and Donna can move on. Suddenly, Donna has shown up, and she is thrilled to see Johnny has come back to her and tells him it's time. Erica, with a heavy heart, realizes that crossing over with Donna is what he wants to do, and that it's time to say goodbye. Johnny and Erica hug goodbye for one last time and say that they love each other. With Donna's permission, he gives her the ring to remember him by and kisses her on the cheek. Then he and Donna share a passionate kiss and reunite, slowly walking off together in the dense fog to the afterlife, with Erica looking on, knowing he'll at least be happy once again. What I really like about this story is that supposedly it was the inspiration for M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense. Shyamalan has stated that he has never seen this episode and would have credited it for this inspiration to the film. The idea of one character being able to see another character who's so to speak dead is a genius and simple premise. This episode executes the idea so as to not show its hand right away. The twist comes slowly and is built up to the last minute. In 2019, it was announced that the series would be revived for a miniseries to air in October of that year. The cast was announced for the miniseries, with Sam Ash Arnold as Gavin, Maya Chek as Akiko, Tamara Smart as Louise, Jeremy Ray Taylor as Graham, and Liana Ray as Rachel as the New Midnight Society, and Raphael Casal as the Carnival of Doom's ringmaster, Mr. Top Hat. The miniseries aired on Friday, October 11th, 18th, and 25th, 2019, and was a rating success. Brandon Roth guest starred in Part 2. In 2020, it was renewed for a second season, titled Are You Afraid of the Dark? Curse of the Shadows. On October 29th, 2020, the cast for a second season was announced with Bryce Geiser, Arjun Athali, Beatrice Kitsos, Malia Baker, Dominic Marsh, and Parker Queenan as the new Midnight Society. The second season premiered on February 12th, 2021. Then, on March 24th, 2022, this year, the series was renewed for a third season, subtitled Ghost Island. Telchi Hunyan, Connor Sherry, Luca Padovan, Dior Goodjohn, and Chance Hurstfield joined the cast as new members of the Midnight Society, while Julian Curtis joined the cast as a hotel manager. The third season premiered on July 30th, 2022. I have personally yet to see this. I've heard amazing things about the kids, the actors in this, and the stories, especially the second season, The Curse of the Shadows. I heard that one's pretty good. So I'm actually going to try and watch these this holiday season. So hopefully I can come back and give maybe just a short episode on those three seasons of the revival, and I'll let you guys know what I think. But as for now, I'm really looking forward to seeing them this holiday season. In the 90s, we had two horror shows for kids: Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps. I always thought that Are You Afraid of the Dark was the darker, scarier of the two. The opening is still chilling, even now watching the episodes as an adult. Showcasing themes about death, the unknown, and the questionable morals. These lead to stories where the good guy doesn't always banish the thing in the dark. Sometimes the thing in the dark wins. Are You Afraid of the Dark has been revived twice, and hopefully will be around for generations to come. When I think back to scary content when I was a kid, this comes to mind along with Goosebumps, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. There are tons of moments that I did not even begin to mention, like the Tale of the 13th Floor and the Tale of the Super Specs. This show will sit in my mind as a staple of my childhood, and I will always come back to this well, just like the Twilight Zone, for which it was influenced by. I declare this meeting of the Midnight Society closed. Thank you all for listening to this new episode of Out from the Horror Box. The spooky season is upon us, and hopefully this will help you get into that October mood. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe so you get every new episode downloaded. Also, spread the word about us as much as you can. The more people who listen and subscribe, the more episodes I'll be able to put out into the world. Got any suggestions for reviews or content? Or you want us to read your scary stories, fact or fiction? You can email us at horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com, or you can message us on Twitter @horrorboxpod, or on Instagram @horrorboxpodcast for reviews, content, news, and personal stories. We'll see you next episode to discover what comes out from the Horror Box.